All right, settle down. Listen close. I want you to really lock in on what I'm about to tell you, because understanding this isn't just about reading a chart, it's about reading the underlying code of reality itself. You look at the charts today, and you see everything moving in unison, boring, predictable. Then you look back at the early days of crypto, 2013, 2017, and it looks like a heart attack. Violent spikes, massive crashes, pure, unadulterated chaos. You ask yourself, where did the magic go? Here is the truth. The market isn't just numbers on a screen. The market is a system of energy. And like every system in this universe, it obeys the laws of physics. Specifically, the second law of thermodynamics. Now don't glaze over. This is the key to the castle. The second law states that in an isolated system, entropy, disorder, always increases. But here is the practical translation. Energy always moves from high concentration to low concentration. Heat always moves to the cold. If I place a red-hot iron ball in the middle of this freezing room, what happens? The ball radiates heat violently. It spikes the temperature right around it. It is distinct. It is powerful. But give it time, and what happens? The heat disperses. The ball cools down. The room warms up slightly. Eventually, everything hits equilibrium. The ball is the same temperature as the air. No more spikes, no more heat. Just a flat line. This is exactly what happened to crypto. When Bitcoin and these alts were new, they were that red-hot iron ball. The energy, the capital, the attention, the belief was highly concentrated in a tiny, immature space. There was no liquidity to absorb it. So when money entered, it didn't just flow, it exploded. The frequencies were high, sharp, and focused. That is why you saw those violent spikes. The system was far from equilibrium. But look at it now. The market has matured. The heat has been diluted. The capital has spread out across thousands of coins, exchanges, ETFs, and derivatives. We have reached a state of higher entropy. The energy is no longer concentrated. It is dispersed. This is why you see everything moving simultaneously now. When the heat is diluted, individual assets lose their ability to act independently. They become part of the ambient temperature of the market. Bitcoin moves, everything else follows, not because they are strong, but because they are caught in the same thermal equilibrium. They are just drifting in the same lukewarm ocean. The volatility is gone because the concentration of energy is gone. And this is where it gets scary. Because this law doesn't just apply to money. It applies to you. Look at human behavior. Look at motivation. You get a new idea, a spark. That is high heat. High frequency. You start the gym, you start the business, you go hard for 2 weeks. But the universe hates concentration. The universe wants you to be room temperature. It wants you to be average. So that initial heat dissipates. It moves to the cold. The motivation leaks out into the distractions of your daily life. And suddenly, you are back to equilibrium. You are back to being a normie. Why does this happen? Because maintaining high temperature, maintaining a spike, requires a constant input of energy. That is what we call discipline. Most people rely on the initial explosion, the big bang of motivation. But once entropy sets in, once the heat dilutes, they quit. They die out. They return to the cold. So how do you win? How does a project win in a market that wants to flatten it out? If you want a coin or a human to spike in a market of equilibrium, you cannot rely on the general flow anymore. You can't just buy and hold and hope the ocean rises. That era is done. To create value now, you must become an external force. You have to inject new energy into the system. Imagine a project. If the developers just launch it and let it sit, it will follow the second law. It will cool down, match the market, and bleed out. To make it stand out, to make it spike, humans have to intervene. They have to stake their reputation, their work, their intellect, and their frequency on that endeavor. They have to effectively build a machine that fights entropy. They need to create a new heat source. This comes from utility, from community, from a narrative so strong it disrupts the equilibrium. They are essentially vibrating at a higher frequency than the rest of the market. If a team stops pushing, stops coding, stops marketing, the coin dies. Why? Because the natural state of the universe is not moon. The natural state of the universe is dust. So here is the lesson. The free ride of the early, immature, high-heat market is over. The heat has diluted. We are in the era of equilibrium. If you want to see a spike now, you don't wait for it. You look for the people, the projects, and the leaders who are maniac enough to fight the laws of physics, who have the discipline to inject energy into the system every single day to keep the temperature high. That is how you win. You don't look for the spark. You look for the fire that refuses to go out. Class dismissed.